a subject, everyone, that I am very, very passionate about. And if you're a regular viewer, you'll know my opinions on this. But I can't stop and I won't stop going on about this because, countries up and down the world, by the way, not just the UK, have been absolutely smacked and then some by COVID. And I'll quote to you, the worst economic crises in more than a century. That is according to the World Bank. Kids, education, mental health, loss of businesses. About what is the latest death toll attributed to COVID? It's in its millions, about 6, 7, 8 million, depending on which statistic you use and which measurement. Anyway, I think that China, if indeed found responsible, and we can have that debate, and I'm sure we will, they should be paying reparations for the damage that this has caused. Do you agree?
I just don't think it'll ever happen. And I think this is something that you and Donald Trump have in common, because he's gone very hard on this subject this week about, saying the same thing that
I've got a clip of him, actually. Bring him up. He was talking to Nigel Farage, I think it was, the other day on this channel. Let me just listen to him, seeing as you brought him up.
Yeah.
The number is 50 to 60 trillion dollars. They can never pay that. Nobody can. You could have 10 Chinas, they couldn't pay it. But they should do something. What they did to the world, not only the United States, not only your country, what they did to the world is unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Continue.
OK, so in that hard-hitting, journalistically piercing interview that Nigel did with Trump there, Trump brought that up because it's something for him to use in his re-election. It gets people excited. The reality is, and nobody sensible thinks that China did it deliberately. OK, there is, though, they don't. What there is, though, and the FBI...
How do you know? Do you speak on behalf of everyone that's sensible? Do I speak? No, I don't think anybody does. If you'd like to name a institution that is respected by people across politics that thinks China did it deliberately, I don't think there is one at the moment.
Well, I don't know if there's an institution that's respected across the spectrum, period.
Well, I think there are by... before we digress, though, China will never be made to pay reparations. There has been huge suffering from it. But the reality is, the consensus of opinion, I wrote this down because I thought it was very important, the consensus of opinion is that it was human error, mechanical failure, animal bites or animal escapes, and it was unintentional and it wasn't bioterrorism. It was an accident that could have happened in the same way that the smallpox virus nearly escaped from a lab in America recently. But realistically, China, with all the challenges, that country's never going to pay reparations. I agree, in theory...
But do you think they should? We can worry about how.
In theory, yes, because something that happened there has caused huge harm and upset across the globe. In theory, but the reality is it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that exact conclusion. I think that morally and accountability-wise, yes, they should. I actually have been saying that since 2020.
Smart man.
Realistically, is it going to happen? No. I don't even think they'd accept proper accountability. It's just because people are afraid. I think a lot of people are afraid of the CCP. And when I say that, I mean political leaders. I think that political leaders are... afraid, even many people in the media are afraid to criticize the Chinese Communist Party or the Chinese government.
Some people take money from them in politics, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah, so I think if you can't even get them to admit accountability to some degree, you're absolutely not going to get them to pay reparations. And as far as I know, they've never issued a statement or put their hands up and said, okay, we take some accountability or responsibility for the damage this thing has caused. That's not even them saying, I'm not even speculating on whether or not it was intentionally. People can pontificate on that. Yeah. We do know, however, that there was a cover-up. It was covered up for the first few months when they knew that things were out there.
And they've been blocking the WHO's attempts.
Exactly, yeah. So there is certainly malice there. But like I said, if they won't accept accountability and people aren't going to really make an effort to hold their feet to the fire,
and
reparations are
that last part, this is what I do not understand, is you're saying, people might be a bit frightened of China, whatever. I do not understand, why is the world not coming together collectively? Because, like I'm saying, this has impacted the world.
I think I know the honest answer. I think because everything is made there. Honestly, I mean, China manufactures a ridiculous amount of stuff that is shipped out all across the world, all across the West. And so I think there are economic concerns and fears around taking that type of action. I think that's a big part of it.
But that in itself, I mean, to be a collection of countries, the world except China, and everyone being dependent on one particular country to create, manufacture, whatever it is, your products, that in itself should be ringing alarm bells. So maybe this is an opportunity for the world to rethink their supply chains. Everyone goes on about China's emissions when it comes to global warming. One of the reasons they are so high compared to us is because of all this manufacturing. But I just still don't get it, because that cannot be the reason alone. Because, by the way, if all countries unite in the world and say, right, we are going to push this. So Biden, for example, he's just signed a bill on COVID origins. So they're going to be apparently pushing to try and get transparency around some of this intelligence about what's known and what's not known. If the world came together and pressurised China, I mean, you say about manufacturing their stuff. China wants to manufacture stuff. It wants to boost its economy. It doesn't want to lose every single customer of its overnight, surely.
Yeah, I think in theory, you're correct. I just think that in terms of the political reality of it, I don't see it happening. That would be wonderful, but I don't see it happening.
And I think Zuby's right. And I think, people are vocal. Like the British ambassador to China, who's a very, very impressive woman, recently said at a meeting in London, China has been, of late, more authoritarian at home and more assertive abroad, right? And there are no punches pulled about human rights abuses with ethnic minorities and in Hong Kong. But the reality is the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is a law unto itself, and that is just the nature of a massive nation state like that, which we have learned over time. It's very difficult to interfere in other sovereign nation states. But the theory is right that it was ultimately originated there. But again, we in the West, we've had near misses with vaccine with virus releases in the past. So unless it was intentional, I think that's the issue.
What do you make to this at home? I find it absolutely fascinating that not more people collectively putting pressure onto the Chinese. I just can't get my head around it. Also, by the way, it is a lesson to be learned, because some people that used to talk about lab leak theories and all the rest of it way back when all of this stuff was popping up, you will remember, they were censored, they were ridiculed, they were called names, they were undermined. Make that be a lesson, because if you were one of those people that did that, some of these things now are starting to come true down the line. What about tariffs, by the way? You could apply tariffs to, I don't know, various Chinese different goods. I think Donald Trump, he was calling for a global summit on reparations. That surely, even if you don't like the man, Donald Trump, you've got to admit that is a good idea, isn't it? I don't know. You tell me.